So here's a question that's kept philosophers and psychologists up at night for centuries. Why do good people sometimes do bad things? Or, to put a finer point on it, how do we even build our own personal understanding of what good and bad really are? Today, we're diving into one of the most influential answers to that question, Lawrence Kohlberg's stages of moral development. We're going to unpack the very architecture of our ethical thinking and see how it grows from just trying not to get in trouble to grappling with huge abstract principles. To kick things off, let's think about this classic thought experiment. It's called the Heinz dilemma. You've got a woman who is literally on her deathbed. There's one drug that can save her, but the pharmacist who made it is charging an insane amount, 10 times what it costs to make. Her husband, Heinz, scrambles to raise the money, but he can only get half of it. The pharmacist won't budge. So, Heinz does the only thing he thinks he can do. He breaks in and steals the drug. Now, the big question for you is, should he have done that?
And here is the absolute key to understanding Kohlberg. Your answer, yes or no, is almost beside the point. What he was totally fascinated by was the why. It's your justification, the logic you use to back up your decision that actually reveals the deep structure of your moral framework. He believed that this framework evolves, that it climbs up a predictable step-by-step ladder. So, here's our game plan. We'll start with that foundational dilemma, then we'll climb Kohlberg's 3 big levels of moral reasoning: pre-conventional, conventional, and post-conventional. Then, to wrap it all up, we'll take a look at the theory's impact and some of the really important criticisms it's faced. All right, let's get into it. Now, Kohlberg wasn't just pulling this out of thin air. He was standing on the shoulders of the giant Jean Piaget. Piaget had this 2-stage idea for kids. First, they see rules as absolute and judge things based on the consequences. Later, they see rules as more flexible and start thinking about intention. Kohlberg thought, that's a good start, but it's way too simple. He used dilemmas, like the one with Heinz, to map out a much more detailed 6-stage journey that continues right on through adulthood.
And this is his grand framework. 3 distinct levels, with 2 stages tucked inside each one. The whole ladder idea is crucial here. Kohlberg said we all go through these stages in the exact same order, no skipping steps. But, and this is a big but, not everyone makes it all the way to the top. So let's start on the ground floor. Okay, so we're starting at the pre-conventional level. At this point, a person really doesn't see themselves as part of society in a meaningful way. Morality isn't something inside you. It's this set of external rules that powerful people, like parents or teachers, hand down. Right and wrong are basically dictated from the outside.
That brings us right to stage 1, which is all about obedience and punishment. Here, rules are concrete, absolute things that you just don't question. The main thinking here is incredibly simple. If you get punished for it, it's wrong. If you don't, it's right. It's a very self-centered view, totally focused on what happens to you.
So a classic stage 1 response to the Heinz dilemma is laser-focused on punishment. The person isn't thinking about the dying wife or the greedy druggist. The moral math is just stealing is against the rules, breaking rules gets you punished, so stealing is bad. That's it, end of discussion.
Now, in stage 2, individualism and exchange, we see a really big jump in thinking. The person now gets that, hey, different people want different things. This leads to this kind of relativistic view where right and wrong are about what serves your own interests. It's all about fair trades and good deals. The whole you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours kind of morality. And this illustrates that shift perfectly. Someone in stage 2 might say Heinz should steal because, well, what's in it for him? Maybe his wife will do something nice for him later. Or they might focus on the deal itself, saying the druggist wasn't playing fair. He was trying to rip Heinz off. In this world, the right thing to do is whatever gets you the best outcome. All right, let's climb up to the next level, the conventional level. This is a massive shift. At this point, people start to really see themselves as part of a group, part of a society, and they begin to internalize the rules and values of their family, their friends, and their community. So stage 3 is all about good interpersonal relationships. Morality stops being about deals and starts being about playing your part, about meeting expectations. The main goal is to be seen as a good person, a good son, a good friend, a good husband, by having good intentions and showing things like empathy and loyalty. See how the focus changes here? The judgment is all about the characters and their motives. Heinz is a good husband because his heart was in the right place. The druggist is bad and greedy because he was selfish. The morality of the action is all about whether people are living up to their social roles. Then we hit stage 4, maintaining social order. Here, the viewpoint zooms out in a big way. You're no longer just thinking about your immediate circle, you're thinking about society as a whole.
The most important thing becomes obeying the law, respecting authority, and doing your duty to make sure society doesn't just fall apart.
This is pure, classic Stage 4 logic. Someone at this stage might feel for Hines, they might get why he did it, but they'll ultimately land on the side of the law. Their core concern is systemic. It's like, look, if everyone just started breaking the rules whenever they felt like it, we'd have chaos on our hands. Social order trumps individual circumstances.
And this comparison is so crucial for understanding the whole theory. Someone at stage 1 and someone at stage 4 could give you the exact same answer. Hines shouldn't steal, it's against the law. But the thinking behind it is from two different planets. For the stage 1 thinker, it's just a simple, self-centered fear of getting caught. For the stage 4 thinker, it's a much more complex concern for the law as the glue that holds a functioning society together.
At last, we reach the top of the ladder, the post-conventional level. Kohlberg thought only a pretty small number of adults actually get here. The post part is key. People at this level move beyond just accepting the norms of their own society. They start to question them and define morality for themselves based on abstract, universal principles they believe should apply to everyone, everywhere.
Stage 5 is all about the social contract and individual rights. People here take what Kohlberg called a prior-to-society perspective. It's like they're stepping outside of it all and asking, what are the rules a truly just society should be based on? And they often conclude that a good society is basically a social contract, one that's designed to protect basic human rights, like life and liberty for everybody.
See how the thinking here goes way beyond just the laws on the books? A stage 5 thinker might say, sure, laws against stealing are generally a good thing, but they're not absolute. In this case, a universal principle, the fundamental right to life, is more important than a law about property. This isn't just about Hines's feelings anymore. It's an appeal to a higher moral truth.
So, what about stage 6? Well, Kohlberg originally pictured this as the absolute peak, the summit of moral reasoning, universal ethical principles. This was about following your own self-chosen conscience, based on abstract principles of justice, and taking everyone's perspective into account. The thing is, he found so few people who consistently reason this way that he eventually dropped it from his scoring system. He started calling it a theoretical stage, more of an ideal to strive for than a place most people could actually get to.
Look, Kohlberg's theory was absolutely game-changing. It gave psychologists a whole new way to talk and think about morality. But like any truly great theory, it's been poked and prodded and criticized over the years, and understanding those critiques is just as important as understanding the theory itself.
And probably the biggest critique came from his own colleague, Carol Gilligan. She argued that the whole theory was fundamentally gender-biased. See, Kohlberg's original studies were done exclusively with boys, so his stages ended up prioritizing what she called an ethic of justice, thinking based on abstract rules and rights, which tended to get you high scores, like stage 4 or 5. Gilligan pointed out that there's another moral voice, an ethic of care, which focuses on relationships, responsibility, and compassion. But on Kohlberg's scale, this way of thinking, which is just as complex, often got you labeled as a less developed stage 3. Her point wasn't that one was better, but that they were two different and equally valid moral languages.
So, let's boil it all down. What are the big things to take away? First, remember this is a theory about the how, not the what. It's about the structure of your reasoning, not your actual beliefs. Second, Kohlberg believed we grow morally by facing challenges, by wrestling with ideas that are just one stage ahead of where we are. And finally, while it has real flaws and has faced a ton of debate, Kohlberg's ladder is still a landmark theory that gave us the basic vocabulary for how we think about moral psychology today.
And that leaves us with one last question to chew on. We live in a world that is just full of passionate, intense moral disagreements. So if we could get better at listening not just to what people are saying, but for the underlying why, the moral stage they're speaking from, do you think we could find better, more productive ways to actually talk to each other?